Do you go back to your days as a mayor and a city commissioner and think, you know, this could have happened to us if we hadn't taken care of our books and we'd gone in the tank fiscally?
Well, Bill, as you know, all politics is there, but for the grace of God go I. So, yeah, sure, that's true. Fortunately, in Battle Creek, we were and actually remained solvent. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you get through your first term, you're elected to 3 more terms. What were your committee assignments?
The first term was health policy, education, and I actually chaired the education committee. Was very fortunate to have somebody like Vern Ehlers on the committee with me, and you know what a wonderful and capable legislator he was.
From Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids,
yeah. Later a congressman.
Later a congressman. Yeah. The second, third, and fourth term, I was on appropriations and chaired the subcommittee on appropriations for higher education, which to me was...
The last 2 terms?
3.
3, all 3 terms.
Yes.
So you not only got on the appropriations committee, you chaired,
I chaired that
from the
subcommittee
beginning
all 3
for
terms.
12 years. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And which for me was the consummation Diwali to be wished, because I love the universities. If there's it's a good example, as you know, if a legislator in a state as complex as Michigan, with a budget the size of Michigan's budget, with all of the pieces, you got to be a specialist. I was a specialist on healthcare issues because of my profession prior to coming to the legislature, and during my time in the legislature. I became a specialist on public higher education because of my love for public higher education, and that was my favorite thing.
Well, a lot of that due to your devotion to your alma mater, University of Michigan. Do you think
absolutely,
that?
to my alma mater, but in time, to the 14 other schools as well. Right. It doesn't make any difference whether you're a Wolverine or a Spartan or a Bronco or whatever. These are wonderful universities.
Right.
They are really the gem. The jewel in the crown of what we have in this state, and we have to take care of them. I never had a hearing not on a college campus, not on a university campus. I mean, we went to Houghton 2 or 3 times in those 12 years, to
Michigan Tech,
to Tech, to Northern, to Sault Ste. Marie, to Lake State, to all of the other schools, at least probably 3 times to each school in the 12 years. But in the 4 or 5 hearings that I'd have before the final hearing and passing a budget, always held on a college campus. And one of the things that I believe I can legitimately criticize today's legislature for is these hearings are now held in Lansing. And I'm asking, how can you, as a chair in the House or the Senate of the committee that funds that provides the state appropriation for our public universities, how can you really do that knowledgeably without having your hearings on the campuses themselves?
Why do you think this has happened?
I don't know. I don't know what the reason is. I don't think there's any good reason. It's just what the chair has chosen to do. And I believe it's an inappropriate choice.
Well, they've had different chairs over the years, but the trend has been the same.
Yes, true.
It's bad.
True.
Well, one thing that must have been a little disappointing to you is that despite your success as a chairman, and I think you were highly regarded as chairman of that subcommittee on higher education, the state's share of funding for higher education continued to go down as a percentage of the budget compared to 50 years ago.
Well, as compared to 50 years ago, yes. Yeah. The actual number under my chairmanship went up every year.
Okay.
And it didn't nosedive until after term limits took over in the Senate, after 2002, and then it tanked. But every year that I was chair, the actual dollars...
The dollars went up, even though maybe as a percentage of the state budget it wasn't going up.
Oh, that's true.
But at least it was going up.
But
after term limits in 2002, that's when it really went in the tank. And why do you think that is?
I think, unfortunately, that there was a lesser appreciation of what a fabulous asset those public universities are. And the point I used to make to my fellow members of the Senate and the House as well, especially to my subcommittee and to the members of the Appropriations Committee, look, if the state appropriation goes down, tuition goes up. that relationship exists.
Right.
Goes down further, tuition goes up further. And that's where we are now. That's where we are now. The state appropriation has gone down to the point where tuition it can be defined in some schools as utterly unaffordable. And that's why, one of the reasons, there are many, one of the reasons we have this intolerable student debt.
Did you get the kind of support from the House in terms of keeping higher education funding levels fairly high while you were chairman of the Senate committee?
Yes.
But the same thing happened in the House once term limits kicked in.
Yes, the House and the Senate. I found that committee, my committee and my subcommittee in the Senate and the subcommittee in the House, we worked together beautifully. And for most of those years,
Who were some of the people you remember
oh
in the
gosh,
House?
in the House that were working on it. Paul Hilligans was wonderful to work with.
Right, Speaker.
Yeah, Curtis Hertel was wonderful to work with.
Democratic Speaker in
Democratic
97,
Speaker.
98.
These were people who were great to work with.
And of course, the
and-
House, they had more and more turnover on these committee chairmanships. So,
Yeah.
didn't have anybody
But
consistently
it was,
there.
the people worked together well, and the importance of these universities was recognized. And as you know, okay, you can say, well, it didn't hurt the University of Michigan. Well, the University of Michigan sits out here with the way it's funded. It has the largest endowment of any public university in the United States, with the exception of the University of Texas system.
Yeah,
The University of Texas system.
right. The whole system.
And their endowment right now is about $8 billion. And you go down, the next highest endowment is MSU, which is still, I think, a tad under $2 billion. And then you go down to other schools, a little smaller state universities. They don't have big endowments. They don't live on their endowments. They need their state appropriation. And their state appropriation is a much larger percentage of their budget. And if their appropriation goes down, and if you look 2002 till the present time, how they've
Right.
gone down and what the tuitions have done, I think it's unforgivable.
Well, let's say that finally somebody saw the light and said, we got to start kicking up state funding for higher education again, get us going back up, so that the colleges and universities could maybe tamp down their tuition, because as you say, it's like a zero-sum game.
That's right.
If one goes up, the other,
It is.
et cetera. What practical effect do you think it would really have on the universities, or are they insatiable? They just want more money. They wouldn't lower the tuition, they'd keep it there. It might not go up as fast.
Well, there is a certain amount of insatiableness that you have to accept. That's a given, no question. However, most of the schools really need that state appropriation to stay up there and be increased every year. Their expenses don't go down. Huge expenses, salaries at universities, faculty salaries. Everybody has an organization that, I would say a union, because it is a union, but they're represented, and the unions do the best for the people that belong to the unions, and so the salaries and benefits go up. So the state has got to keep up with this. You could say, well, to hell with the universities. We're sick and tired of them spending this money. This is ridiculous. We're going to spend it on something else. Well, that's really not fair to the young men and women in this state who are going to school at these universities. It's a fact of life, ladies and gentlemen of the legislature. Suck it up and do the right thing.
Okay, Senator, you're a politician in Michigan now. You're in the state Senate. Do you ever, or did you ever, back in the late 90s, let's say, think about those days back in Southeast Asia? The people you knew there, did you keep in touch with them? Or
all the time, of course. Between my wife, who died in 1990 and had many friends that she made in the agency, but then in the subsequent years, kept in touch with a number of them. The other assistant naval attaché in Indonesia, a fellow named Don Black, Navy Lieutenant Commander, Ohio State grad, but we're best of friends. There were 2 or 3 or 4 women in Vietnam who were agency people, some of the most dedicated professionals I've ever met in my life, And two of them, actually one owns a home down on Lake Michigan, down south of St. Joseph. They come up every summer. I drive down and we swap tales back and forth. And what wonderful people they were. Both of them 30-year veterans of the agency. And I think back about them and what wonderful professionals they were and what great examples they were to me, who was new at the trade. And I'm very fortunate that I'm able to talk to them and see them at least once a year. They're retired and living in Arizona, but they come up to Michigan in the summer.